What's your writing style? Like, is it just a case of when the energy's there, you feel like it, or do you kind of force yourself? How do you kind of? I mean, I know what it's like to write a book. It's a lot of time and effort. So I'm just how your writing process is.
If I waited for when the energy is there, I would never write a thing. I have narcolepsy. There is never the energy. So I have to just sit down and do it. And my process is they were called the plotters and the pantsers, right? Or you want to say the plotters and the discovery writers, for people who don't like to be called pantsers. Basically, a pantser is somebody who comes and goes like, I don't know, something like this, and then you just start writing. And once you know your characters and kind of know a little bit of the story, and you start writing along, and then you start, then I know how flaky this sounds, but the characters start to tell you the story. And it's a pretty amazing feeling when that starts to roll along. I've had so many instances where I sort of knew where I was going as I'm putting this together. But I sit down in the morning, I get up very early. So despite having narcolepsy, see, if I were to sleep with narcolepsy for 10, even 12 hours, I'd wake up and still be sleepy. So what's the point? So I sleep most nights about 6 hours. So I get up in the morning at about 4:30. Even without an alarm, I wake up at about 4:30. And I, go grab a cup of coffee. I might go to the gym. I try to go to the gym 5 days a week or so and just try to keep healthy, mainly. And supposedly it helps with the narcolepsy. And I sit down to write. And I sit down for a couple hours in the morning. And if I can do another writing session in the afternoon, I'll do that in the afternoon. But I tell you what, when I talk about the process and how much faith I have into it, I didn't realize that maybe there's even more to it. Right? Because I think a lot of this is coming from some of the narcolepsy, it's coming from my own inspiration. But I'm starting to wonder, I have a big belief, like people have asked, why do you write supernatural? Like, have you ever had a supernatural experience? Like, I wouldn't even know. I wouldn't even know. But I do like to believe there's a wee bit of magic out there, that there's some sort of serendipity or some things that happen coming together. I would love to believe that. And I think that's part of why I like supernatural. Because most of my story, like 90% of it, is just a thriller and humor, right? But yeah, then there's that 5 or 10% that is, he's a werewolf that sometimes he turns into dogs. But so I'll give you an example of what I mean. Like, so normally I'm sitting down there and I sort of believe in the flow and it's going to be happening, going to be coming together, right? And so I was writing book 3, which just came out here at the end of December. Writing book 3 in the series. And that morning, I was sort of struggling. I couldn't quite put it together. And I sort of knew where I was going, but I was just sort of hitting a bit of a block. And this happens normally in most books when I start writing a new book. My process for writing a book, the very first step I do, and when I'm writing a new book, is I go, I can't do this. There's no way. I'm not a good writer. And so I know that struggle is going to be at the start. So anyways, this one morning, I was sort of struggling with book 3. I couldn't quite put it together. And then I had booked, some folks had booked me in for like a readers group. So like for every now and then from around the world, I've had people in the US, UK, and in Canada. They'll get together, like maybe a dozen of them, maybe a couple more, whatever. They'll all read the book and they'll reach out to me and say, hey, listen, we'd love to talk to you about the book. Is that something you could do? I said, sure. And so there was this group in the UK, and this lovely group in the UK wanted to speak with me. And so I put my stuff aside. I was struggling with it anyhow. The beginning of book 3, I put it aside. I was talking to this group in the UK, and this lovely woman, and I always say that she was from New Brighton. I don't know if she said she was from New Brighton. Maybe somewhere in my head I think it sounds cool, which I think somebody who probably knows New Brighton would be like, no, I have no idea. But so this lovely woman from New Brighton said, oh, I'm really loving these stories. I can't wait for book 3. And I really want to find out more about, like, Cain, when he got taken in, because Cain gets taken in. He's a wolf who gets bitten by an infected man. The next day, he turns into a human. He's basically a teenage boy. Over that next year, his speed grows 10 years, right? But he's brought in by this British Columbian couple, this French-Canadian couple. And so she was saying, I really can't wait to learn more about Cain when he's on the farm with the British Canadian couple, about, how they teach him about being a human, about how they, everything he needs to know about the world. And I said, that's funny you say that, because that's exactly what I'm going to do in book 3. Now that you've said those moments are happening, it's funny you mentioned that, because that's what I'm doing. And but that was exactly the inspiration I needed. It was almost like I was saying a moment ago, that little bit of magic in the world where I just needed that little bit of magic. I need that little bit, a bit of inspiration. This woman from New Brighton is just this total stranger. She said this one thing and went, of course, that's what it has to be. Of course, it needs to be a little bit of a, how did this happen? Of course, that has to be that. And that I've thanked her for it, and I made sure that she got a copy of the book. But yeah, that's a little bit of inspiration that came from whatever it was, 10,000 miles away. It's pretty amazing. But when you sort of, as best you can, leave yourself open to like, yeah, that might work. That might be something. Maybe 10, 15 years ago, I would have been more precious about it, closed off about it. But I now understand that inspiration can come from anywhere. You never know when that moment comes in. And I've just been saying yes and like, let's go to things far more as I get older. With a reason, within something that stays within the judicial process, within the legal system. But yeah, it's pretty great. I've had some amazing readers.